Pittsburgh Steelers fans, it is time once again for another edition of the Know Your Enemy podcast. My name is Michael Beck, your deputy editor behind thesteelcurtain.com. And I'm joined with my partner in crime here on Wednesday nights, Mr. Jeffrey Benedict. Jeffrey, how are you doing tonight, sir?
Doing great, Michael. We don't even have an enemy to talk about. I didn't have to research any other teams. I didn't have to look at anything. I was just like, yes, best week.
Well,
I spent every week looking at the Steelers, right? And then for this show, I'm like, oh, what's Seattle done this year? I don't know.
Well, to say there is no enemy might be an incorrect statement, because as you tweeted earlier, as in a promo to the show, you might have mentioned, are the Pittsburgh Steelers their own worst enemy? I'm curious to know your thoughts on that right off the top here. So in the spirit of know your enemy, are the Steelers their own worst enemy?
I like to think of it in the terms of the art of war. Know yourself, know your enemy. You have to know yourself to even have a chance to win. You have to know your strengths and your weaknesses. And in some ways, the Steelers are their own worst enemies. And I think we're going to get into it a lot in this first half with some of the problems this roster has and some of the problems the Steelers have in games as to why they're 3-3. I mean, really. They are 3-3, and we lost some games that you're like, those are pretty bad losses.
Yeah, and you're 100% right on that. And of course, probably the first thing we should touch on is the Pittsburgh Steelers are a 3-3, 500 football team at the bye week. I think a lot of people, probably assume this is the position they may be in before the year started, but perhaps not against the opponents they actually did win the games against. But what were your kind of thoughts on this past weekend's game against the Seattle Seahawks, first and foremost? And that, I don't really know a very good way to describe that game. Messy, maybe. Messy football. Messy second half. Dominant first half. Pretty good overtime. How would you describe that Steelers game?
It was the best of games. It was the worst of games. There was no middle ground. The Steelers absolutely shut them down while scoring touchdowns. Then the third quarter came around, and the Steelers were like, what is football? We don't know. How do you play this game? Tackling people? We're not allowed to do that anymore. We don't. You have to just kind of lightly graze people or push them sideways. You can't tackle people. And then in the overtime, TJ Watt was just like, enough of this. I'm done. Give Chris Boswell the ball and let's be out. Let's get out of here.
Give him a chance. Win the game.
Just give him a chance.
Yeah, exactly. Now, in that game, of course, the Seattle Seahawks at halftime made an adjustment for Alex Collins to start running the football all over the field. And it became quite frustrating. As a fan of this team, watching them implode to a degree, obviously Seattle made a change. What was the change that you saw on tape, and how did they exploit the Steelers defense?
Well, this is something I really want to talk about because I've looked more into it beyond just this game. But what Seattle did, the first half of that game, they ran 4 times. 4 times in the first half for 19 yards. That's not bad. That's you're looking at that Peyton Manning 2005 playoffs, where you're like Edgar and James is killing us, but unfortunately you just don't give them the ball. Seattle went into halftime and was like, we've got to stop the Steelers from doing what they're doing, because the Steelers' entire game plan was 2 deep safeties. Minkah and Terrell Edmonds, just don't let DK Metcalf get past you. It's basically what they're doing. Whoever's on his side, stay deep. The other guy kind of come up a bit, watch out for Tyler Lockett. But they were really we're going to stop these 2. And they talked about on the broadcast, those guys are over 50% of their offense, touches, with running backs included. Those guys are over 50% of that team's offense, just those 2 receivers. So that's crazy, right? So the Steelers are let's just take them away. The Seattle came out in the second half and said, we're going to run on you until you get out of cover 2. And the Steelers were basically yeah, you can run on us. We're still not ditching cover 2. We're not letting you throw the ball to DK Metcalf deep. We're not going to give that up. And they didn't. You didn't have a single deep catch. His longest reception was 14 yards. If you can do that, you can beat Seattle. So at the second half, they really started after they had to adjust to the run, which I should probably tell what they did, since that was the question. What Seattle switched and what their focus wasn't just running the ball, but they ran to the right side. right interior kind of side, right at one Chris Wormley. Like, they ran at Chris Wormley, and not just Chris Wormley. They ran at Chris Wormley and TJ Watt and Joe Schober. That's the right side of the defense. If you're on the offense and you're running to the right side, that's who you're running at. The left side defense, you're running at Cameron Hayward, Alex Highsmith, and Devin Bush. Alex Highsmith is a phenomenal run defender. I don't have to say anything other than the words Cameron Hayward. People should know what that means. And Devin Bush is a good run stopper. Joe Schober is better in coverage than he is at stopping the run. He's solid, right? Not great. Chris Wormley is a better pass rusher. He's not stout against the run. He's not that guy. And TJ Watt, his whole job is go in there, disrupt Geno Smith. Don't let him get going. Right? We've got a quarterback who isn't a starter. He hasn't seen pressure in a long time. He really hasn't. Go in there and disrupt him. And TJ's just teeing off on the quarterback the entire first half. That second half, they start running right at Chris Wormley, right at TJ Watt, and they're killing us. Absolutely destroying us with just very simple blocking patterns. They're just double teaming Chris Wormley and then working off to Joe Schober, and it was just working. As the Steelers tried to, like, you saw one play, it's like the 3rd and 3 run. Cameron Hayward just is like crashing to that side to try and bail out, what they're doing to Chris Wormley. And he just cuts it back and picks up the first down. Like, you just like, he got tackled by Devin Bush. Like, you're not going to gain a ton of yards that way, but he still picked up the first down. The Steelers started run blitzing. They switched in Isaiah Loudermilk. They're going crazy trying to stop the run. They hit that 41-yard pass to the tight end the next time because they ran play action and the tight end ran completely free. Devin Bush and Joe Schober both on the running back. The tight end is just wide open, right? And with the safeties leading back farther, your running backs have more space. They're missing tackles because the running back has open space. You give a running back space, they shouldn't get tackled by a safety. A good running back just shouldn't. If you've got enough space to maneuver, you've got to break that tackle. And the Steelers eventually adapted by basically telling TJ Watt, stop pass rushing and just straight up play run defense. And once he did that, he basically turned the tables on that entire side of the defense. It's incredible to watch because at times you're like, yeah, TJ Watt's, I say it a lot. TJ Watt's the best pass rusher in the NFL, and he just rushes the quarterback because why wouldn't you have him do that? He's the best in the NFL at it. And then the Steelers are like, hey, we can't stop anyone running to the right. Can you single-handedly solve that? Can you beat double teams and disrupt the run? And TJ's like, yeah, I got that. And he did. I'm just like, holy crap. TJ Watt just goes like, oh, we're going to stop the run. And he just does. There was a play, they picked up a first down late where they showed, they did a RPO. And TJ was trying to decide, am I going for the running back or the quarterback? And he just went for the running back. Geno Smith took it, stepped out, and threw a pass. That's what TJ had to do. For us to not just get gashed constantly on the ground, he had to do that. So I went and I looked up. I know I'm ranting here.
It's okay.
I went and looked up the numbers for rushing directionally for the Steelers. One of the best places you can get that. Football Outsiders does DVOA by rush location, right? To the left end and the left tackle, Steelers are a top 10 run defense. Left end, they're number 3. Left tackle, they're number 7. Runs off right tackle. The Steelers rank 32nd in the NFL in defense and DVOA, defensive value over average or something like that. I don't remember what it says. But basically, we're the worst run defense when you run at the right, that the defensive end to the offensive right, which is the left defensive end, which is where Stephon Tuitt should be and isn't. Where Tyson Alualu would have filled in 4-man fronts and isn't. It's where Chris Wormley and Isaiah Loudermilk and Carlos Davis and those guys have to play because Cameron Hayward's on the other side. We are the worst run defense in the NFL on those specific runs. We are one of the best to Cam Hayward's side. And Alex Highsmith is part of that too. He's a really good run defender. That's the story of that game. Seahawks were just like, yeah, run at that guy. They have a weak link on their defensive line. Just run at it. And I don't want to rag too much on Chris Wormley. He's our number 4 defensive lineman. normally. Right now, he's number 2. Our number 3 guy in snaps this last game was Henry Mondeau, who's normally on the practice squad. That's the problem there. That's going to be a problem unless Stephon Tuitt comes back. It's going to be a problem the Steelers are going to have to deal with.
Yeah, and not a moment too soon when Stephon Tuitt is available to this team. One of the guys you mentioned in there, though, was TJ Watt, of course. Being the AFC Defensive Player of the Week, having one of the more incredible stat lines you'll see from an outside linebacker. In any given week, he went off. Of course, we've seen the Steelers miss him for a game and a half. But outside of that, TJ Watt's been outstanding from that action that he missed. Even when he's played somewhat injured against the Packers, he was still made an impact. How different?
He got like 2 of the garbagest sacks ever, but he still got 2 sacks. Like you're just
exactly. It's TJ. Like when you're that good, things like that happen to you. But with him specifically, how different are the Steelers over the course of these 6 games? How different a team are they when they don't have TJ Watt in the lineup compared to when he is lining up on the outside?
When he is disrupting the pass game, our pass defense is great. When he was focused on the run game, our run defense is great. Whatever TJ Watt is doing, the other team just has to try and work around it, right? And hope for the best. He is that good. When they didn't have him, this defense was terrible. Because basically without TJ Watt, the defense could be like, we can throw 2 guys at Cameron Hayward, and if we need to, a third, right? And we can just go away from him and avoid him and have our running back just outrun him to the other side of the field. They could just get away from Cameron Hayward, and no one else was a real threat. This defensive front right now has 2 players that are above average. I would say everyone else is average or like almost replacement value, kind of that idea. Like we are not good in the front 7 outside of Cameron Hayward and TJ Watt, who are legitimate like defensive player of the year candidates. Both of them, in my opinion, the way they've been playing so far, they are that level of player, and no one else is anywhere close to them.
Yeah, no, that definitely will bring down any team losing a player of that caliber then. But I'm curious what you've seen out of Alex Highsmith now as the season goes on. He picked up a sack and a half, really his first sack of the season. It took a while for him to get there, but eventually he did, of course, in this game. What has he done over the course of this year? Does he look better than he did at the end of last season? And how would you even compare him to what the Steelers had a year ago in Bud Dupree?
Oh, that's harsh. Man, that's harsh. Because Alex Highsmith has one real drawback, and that is his athleticism. He's not he is, I don't want to say he's not a quick twitch guy, because he gets off the line really fast, right? He is great reading the snap, getting off the line. He's explosive off the snap. He's just not the speed to the ball that you had with Bud Dupree. And in Keith Butler's defense, Keith Butler used Bud Dupree so well. Not as in Bud Dupree picking up his own stats, but his entire career. I've talked about this so many times, but Bud Dupree's entire career in Pittsburgh, when he was active, when he was on the field playing in a game, the Steelers averaged 3 sacks a game. At no point in that time period, outside of like the season, Bud Dupree missed 1 game, and it was the game against Cleveland. They had the quarterback starting his first game ever, who wasn't any good, and he like ran into Anthony Chickalo twice to give up 7 sacks. That's the only time where multiple games where like the Steelers averaged 3 sacks without Bud Dupree. Any season where he missed 2 games or more, the Steelers did not average 3 sacks a game in the games he was out. That includes last season, when they had Stephon Tuitt getting 11 sacks, TJ Watt, Defensive Player of the Year candidate. They had Cameron Hayward. They had Alex Highsmith coming in to back him up. It shouldn't have been that big of a loss, but yet you went from like 3.5 sacks to like 2.5 sacks a game without Bud Dupree. It's true across the board. The craziest was 2016, when Cameron Hayward got hurt and Bud Dupree came back from injury, and they went from like 1.5 sacks a game to over 3 sacks a game for the rest of the season with Bud Dupree. He had that element where he just fit what Keith Butler wanted him to do. And Keith Butler used him to create opportunities for sacks for other people. You're seeing quarterbacks escape the pocket. You're seeing that this year. You're seeing guys be able to run. They're getting better at it. The guys are learning. They're getting better. But you saw that earlier in the season. You didn't see that last year. As for Alex Highsmith himself, he is not the physical specimen that Bud Dupree was, but he is a phenomenal run defender. He's got really good pass rush moves. It's just not like he's like the second guy to the quarterback, or he's sometimes the third guy to the quarterback, or he doesn't win. Like, he throws a good move down and they still win the block. He hasn't had a great season, but he has been phenomenal in run defense, and I loved seeing him get to the quarterback 4 times. 4 quarterback hits. 2 of them were sacks. 1.5 sacks, 4 quarterback hits. I loved seeing that. I don't know what happened, but it clicked for him that game, and I hope we see that going forward, because I love Alex Highsmith, and I love what he shows on film. It's not, it's not producing yet.
Now, to flip things over to the other side of the football, one of the big components of this team, and kind of a hot topic, of course, is Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger, Steelers quarterback. Of course, he's had some struggles this year. He's had some bright spots too, to be completely fair to him. Has he played better in the Steelers wins compared to the Steelers losses? Is that something you've noticed? Has he been getting better as the year gone on? What have you seen overall from Ben?
Outside of I want to say Green Bay game, was that the game he was like missing everything and it was terrible, or was that Cincinnati?
I think it was the Green Bay one.
Okay, I may have said Cincinnati in my podcast and got that wrong, my other one. But outside of the game where after the game they talked and they were like, oh, his mechanics are off. And he was like, yeah, I got to work on my mechanics. Outside of that game where he was missing throws he routinely makes and just looked awful, he has been pretty much the same guy. Like, I would say he's been consistently the same quarterback since middle of last season, maybe even early last season. Since he's come back from, missing the 2019 season, I would say he's been pretty consistently the same quarterback most of the time. What changes is, what's the blocking like? Are the receivers dropping passes? Is he getting hit? Is there a run game? What's the defense? How's the defense defending routes? He's not a guy who, like he could before, elevate his game when the situation was awful. Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger was phenomenal at that. 2008, he was always just having to do it himself, and he did. Now he's not that guy. He can't do that stuff. He just can't. He's still solid. It's not just his mobility either. There's some throws he can't make, or is unwilling to make, or just doesn't trust his arm. I don't know what it is, but there's some throws he doesn't take. But it's consistent. When the other team has to focus on Najee Harris to the point that those slant routes are open that he loves to throw, he kills teams with those slant routes. It's just when you don't have a run game going good enough to force those linebackers inside, they'll sit on them and stop. All of a sudden, those slant routes are they're covered. So to me, he hasn't really changed. It's been the circumstances around him that have changed. I really question if we can expect more from him. I really think this is what we're going to get, and this is kind of his, this is his last ride, and this is the quarterback he is. And it's not necessarily bad. It's just nowhere close to what we remember, from the glory days of Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, no kidding. And really, I guess to kind of expand on this, how has the offense itself changed since Juju Smith-Schuster's gone down? Has Ben played it any different? How are the receivers lining up? Who's taking those targets? What are you seeing from the offense now with the new receiver in front of, or I guess beside Big Ben Roethlisberger?
Yeah, it was weird looking at the snap counts and seeing that Ray McLeod played as much as he did. I frankly didn't notice him that much because he's not a receiver you're going to notice a lot. He doesn't make a lot of plays. But he got some of the snaps, and then we saw an increase in usage of tight ends out wide. We saw them in the slot. We saw them not in the line, not lined up on the formation like we normally see them. And I liked that. We saw Pat Freiermuth, have a good game. Finally, him and Eric Ebron tripled, had more yards in that game than they did in the previous 3 combined. Like 3 games combined, they had more in this game than they did in those 3. So the tight ends got a little more involved, and I think they need to lean on that. I really think they need to lean on that. If you're using Pat Freiermuth in the slot and you have Eric Ebron on the other side, or Pat Freiermuth line and Eric Ebron in the slot, you've got a heavy set right there. You're looking at a heavy set, and yet you also have receivers. We did the touchdown to Najee Harris. Had a 2 wide receiver, had 2 tight ends, and Najee Harris in, and they went 5 wide. They went empty set. Just were like, how do you defend that? You've got multiple. You're prepared for a power run set. And they spread them out. They did it one time. They had Derek Watt coming in, and then he just went outside. Doesn't matter. You can't. How are you going to match up against us? So I liked that. I think there's a lot Canada can do with that. That's more in his wheelhouse. He loved using fullbacks and tight ends out in the slot. He did that a lot in college, and I think with Juju Smith-Schuster out, we'll see more of that. And I hope we do, because I know everyone leans back to Ben Roethlisberger running what he's comfortable with, the no huddle, all those things. But the truth is that offense doesn't work. Not on this team, not with this offensive line. When he has good blocking, it works. When he doesn't have good blocking, it doesn't work. So is it going to work right now? No, it's not going to work. You've got to do something else. You've got to get away from that. And I think Matt Canada's offense right now is working a lot better than the traditional Ben Roethlisberger offense.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that too. And kind of the big things with this offense as well is the amount of rookie starters we're currently looking at. Of course, Kendrick Green, Dan Moore Jr., Najee Harris, and Pat Freiermuth himself. How are these 4 young guys kind of taken to playing in the NFL? Have they gotten better? Who's showing the most signs of improvement, and who has that kind of superstar potential?
I'll start on the offensive line. Dan Moore Jr. has become a dynamic run blocker for the most part. There's still places where he loses to a veteran move or something that he just doesn't know yet. But in most run plays, he has gotten really good. He is not so good, protecting Ben Roethlisberger. And playing left tackle, that's kind of a bad spot to have a guy who's he can run block really good, but he's not so hot on the pass blocking. Kendrick Green is the opposite. He is not. He's not good run blocking, but he's gotten a lot better pass blocking. He still gives up pressures, but he's not as bad as he was to start the season. I think both of them have solid potential. Najee Harris is. I mean, he's been a superstar since the day he walked on the field. He's been better than I expected. I don't know how high either of us. I don't know how high you were on him, but I know I wasn't super high on him. I was like, oh, he's going to be better than James Conner was. Yeah, he's so much better. He's phenomenal. If he had an offensive line, he'd be an all pro this year. If he had a real offensive line, I don't think we're going to get much better than him unless the offensive line gets better. But Pat Freiermuth, I think, is legit. I mean, he's caught 90% of his targets. 90% catch rate. He's second on the team in yards per target. Come on. Throw him the ball more. He's 5th in targets. There's 4 guys on this team we target more than him, including Najee Harris. Half the time when you're throwing to Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth is open. Maybe hit this guy. I hope they take the bye week to draw up some special plays for him, get him more involved. They have to, because he is a weapon they need to use. I think that's going to be a key factor for the future, and I think he has that potential to be really good.
Yeah, and a shameless plug, if you click over behind thesteelcurtain.com, I wrote an article on this very topic that dropped on Wednesday, so you can go ahead and read that, specifically pointing at more seam routes, more corners, more posts, getting him involved a little bit more deeper down the field as well. I think would be something huge for Pat Freiermuth and the offense as a whole. Now, as we kind of roll along in the first half of our show here, One of the guys that struggled mightily against the Seahawks and has struggled a lot, honestly, throughout this entire season is Chase Claypool, the kind of Steelers phenom receiver from a year ago. Doesn't quite look the same here in 2021. What are you seeing from him? What's the reason for the decline from Mabletron himself?
I mean, he actually, at this point, the production has me wondering if we're overrating him. And then I look at the film and I'm like, he's got the traits. He's got the traits. I think the problem is Ben. We're used to any deep threat that's legit lining up and just going off with Ben Roethlisberger, Mike Wallace, Martavis Bryant, my man Sammy Coates having like 6 games of setting the NFL on fire before he forgot how to catch the ball. Like, he's been that guy. Nate Washington was a good receiver for this team. I mean, Ben has been that guy for a long time, and he's not anymore. He still loves throwing the sideline deep routes to just throw it to the sideline. He loves those. He still throws those, and he still throws them well. The problem is there's no counters to them. So teams, I mean, I posted on this on Twitter, and people were like, you have to be wrong. Like, nobody does what you're saying defenses are doing. I can show you on film. There are defenses running single high safety, and their cornerbacks have outside leverage on both receivers. To the field, to the boundary, both of them, they have outside leverage. And they're straight up just defending the sideline route because that's the route Ben throws. They're cheating to that side, knowing if a guy beats you inside, Ben's going to throw him to the sideline. Right? Like, and we saw that Deontay Johnson's touchdown against the last touchdown he caught. Was that the deep one?
The deep shot against Denver.
Thank you. Man, I can't remember words. But that one, Deontay got an inside release and had to cross the defender back outside because it was to the side. It was to the sideline. Now, I know there are throws designed to do that, but there's also a lot of times where if you've got a single high safety and you've got a corner and you have an inside release win from the wide receiver, you just split the cornerback and the safety and you got a big gain. Ben used to nail those all the time. He was killer at it, and that's how he set up. Like, if you can't camp the outside sideline shots, he's going to kill you on them. Well, if you look at how many of those outside shots when they go to Chase Claypool is trying to jump over somebody, reaching over a defender, like stretching back there. And yeah, it's a contested catch, but that's a tough contested catch. That's a hard one. And good contested catch guys, good contested catch numbers are like 50%, and that's mostly on the quarterback throwing a good ball where the receiver can get it in through the contact, right? We don't have that quarterback right now. We don't have him. And where Chase Claypool is doing the most damage is on like slant routes. Stuff like that. Inside, run a little seam route, and Ben hits him. That's good. But when he lines up outside where he is super deadly, like, they just know the ball is going to the sideline. The ball is going to go there. You kind of know where the ball is going to go. It's easier to defend. I'm hoping Ben proves me wrong and starts splitting the safety and the outside wide receiver. I'm hoping that happens, but I'm not seeing it. And until we see it, I don't think Chase Claypool is going to be the guy we keep expecting him to be.
Yeah, no, and that's a good point. Now, sticking in the receiving core as well, though, we already know all about Deontay Johnson, but kind of the big question mark we're faced with right now is James Washington. What the heck is he? Is he the Steelers receiver 3 now that Juju's gone? Is he the Steelers receiver 4? Is he battling injury? Mike Tomlin made it seem like he wasn't. Ike Hilliard, I believe, made it seem like he was. What's going on with this guy? Why isn't he getting that bump of snaps that we were all expecting him to get against the Seattle Seahawks?
Yeah, I went on record talking about how when Juju Smith-Schuster is out, he's like a 70 yards a game receiver, 60 to 70 yards a game. And 8 snaps? That's it? I don't get it. I don't get why Ray McLeod is in there, but we heard rumors that he was unhappy, that he wanted a better shot. He's playing for a contract, I wonder if that's not an issue, because when he's been in and when he has played, he hasn't looked as good on film. Like his routes aren't as good. Like it doesn't seem like he's the same guy right now. And I don't know, maybe that's Matt Canada's offense doesn't fit him as well. That's a possibility. Like maybe the role they're putting him in doesn't fit him as well. I don't know, but it just seems like he's not quite the player he was the last couple of seasons, where I was like, come on, you've got to get him in. You've got to throw the ball to him. You've got to do this. But the problem was him and Juju Smith-Schuster needed those same routes. Like they needed the same routes to produce. And James was behind Juju Smith-Schuster. And then when Juju would go out, James would go off. Well, now Juju's out. Doesn't look like there's much there for James Washington.
Yeah, no, you are 100% on the money with that. We are at the halfway mark of our show here. So if you're listening on YouTube or Facebook, just hang tight. If you're listening on a podcast platform, whatever it may be, just click over to part 2 now, and we'll get into more action from Know Your Enemy and kind of take a look ahead at the Steelers' future here. So click over to part 2 right now. Alrighty, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, it's time for the second half of our show. Once again, my name is Michael Beck. He is Jeffrey Benedict, and we are hanging out with you tonight. Of course, brought to you behind the steel curtain.com, breaking things down for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The first half of the show, kind of looking at the first 6 weeks of the year. Of course, we're in the bye week. If you're just learning that now, I hate to disappoint you, but there's no Steelers football on Sunday. But there is a big, windy road ahead for the Pittsburgh Steelers, of course, clawing back to 500. They got a banged-up Browns team on the horizon. They got a couple poor NFC North teams on the horizon. There's a chance for the Steelers to get on a bit of a run here. But I know, Jeffrey, you wanted to kind of go off and talk a little bit on the away games and some interesting stats behind it. So I'm gonna give it away to you, and you can break down exactly what the Steelers are faced with on the road.
Yeah, I looked at the numbers. Obviously, we've got all three of our division opponents, which are like super close nearby. Cincinnati's the farthest, and it's not even 300 miles. That's a quick flight. We're facing Kansas City and Minnesota, right? I looked up Ben Roethlisberger's records against those teams on the road against Kansas City. Ben Roethlisberger is 2-1 against the Minnesota Vikings on the road. He's 1-1, but one of those games was in London, and I'll get back to that. The game I think is the one we can all kind of count as a loss, is the one against the Chargers. That is on the road. It's 2,431 miles from Pittsburgh to LA. That's between the airports. In the state of California, Ben Roethlisberger is 1-7. That includes 0-4 against Oakland, right? Like the Raiders. He has never beaten the Oakland Raiders. 0-1 against San Francisco and 1-2 against San Diego. For total games for his career, where the Steelers have had to travel 2,000 or more miles away from Pittsburgh. 2,000 plus miles. This includes one of the games against the Minnesota Vikings. It was counted as a road game. It was in London where they lost. The Steelers are 2-10 with Ben Roethlisberger in games where they have to travel 2,000 or more miles from home. So right off the bat, I'm counting one of those games on that schedule as a loss. It also helps that the team is actually pretty good this year. The LA Chargers have a good young quarterback and a really good defense. But that game, I expect that to be an ugly loss. I absolutely do. And if you want a great stat, great stat for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Devlin Hodges has as many wins in the state of California as Ben Roethlisberger for the Steelers. And Devlin Hodges, by the way, played a total of 6 games for the Steelers. He's 1-0, beating the Chargers, and Ben is 1-7 in California.
Not great, Bob. Now, hopefully the Steelers can turn it around here. I'm curious what you think the next little slate of games the Steelers have in front of them. Of course, the Browns are banged up, like we mentioned, very banged up. And then the Bears and the Lions on the docket. What do you think is a realistic record to be looking at this team? Because I know for me looking at it, The Lions have struggled to do anything. I know Dan Campbell's got them playing hard, but they're trending it in a very poor direction. The Bears have struggled all year long. And the Browns, like I mentioned, are very, very beat up. I don't think being 6-3 after the next 3 games is all that unrealistic. So I'm curious what you think the Steelers can do over the course of the next 3 games.
Do we want to go into the Cleveland game yet, or do we want to say, are you saving that?
Oh, we can get into it. We can get into it.
I would start there because that to me is just an enormous game. That is such a big, it goes, I mean, in the record books, after the game is over, it's exactly 1 loss or a win for either team, right? But it is huge. You look at the standings right now, you look at the situation our teams are in, the playoff picture, like, that's a big game. That is a huge game. If the Steelers can go in and beat a banged up Cleveland team, that is a huge step in the season. And also, seriously, I would love to see it. I want Ben Roethlisberger to go into Cleveland and beat them after what they did to him in the playoffs last season. I don't want that to be like, the memory of him ending, his career where he dominated in the state, dominated Cleveland at home and away, wherever state he was in. He killed Cleveland. So I want to see that one. After that, there's a few games there. Yeah, the Chicago and Detroit games. You're like, you got to think the Steelers can do something there. Although I know, Chicago is here, right? We're playing Chicago.
Yes, it's in
it's not Soldier Field.
The Steelers struggle against the Bears regardless. I think that's the worst record the Steelers have against any team in football historically. They struggle against the Bears for whatever reason, but still, the Bears are not in a great space right now.
Oh yeah, they're not in a great space, and Detroit is a nightmare. So I think those 2 games should be won. 5-4 is a good place to be. 5-4 where you beat the Browns is a perfectly fine place. I'm okay. You could lose to Detroit. Like, they could get blown out by Detroit and eke out wins against Chicago and Cleveland, and I would be like thrilled. I'd be like, no, it's fine. That's fine. You beat Cleveland. 5-4 I'm good with. 6-3 I think is a little much. I don't think this team is going to put together 3 good games in a row after winning 2. I don't think they have a 5-game streak in them. I really
coming
don't.
Off a bye though. It might all it takes is 1 at a time. If the Steelers do end up 6-3, despite your reservations towards it, how much likely is it that they are a playoff team at that point?
I mean, you think 6-3, 4-4 puts you in the playoffs. 10-7 is a playoff team, in my opinion. Look at the standings right
7.
now.
With 7, I'm sure 9 and 8 now.
9 and 8, yeah. There's a chance if you're 9 and 8 that someone else 9 and 8 gets in and you don't, right?
Right.
I think 10-7 is a playoff team for sure. Like, that's guaranteed. But yeah, if you're 6-3, like you said, 3-5, you have a winning record. You could end the season 3-5 and have a winning record. So they'd definitely be a playoff team if they can pull that off and go 6-3. And to be fair, if Zach Banner comes back and plays well, right, and he plays like the little sample size we've had of him playing, where he's been pretty dang good, or Stephon Tuitt comes back, because like I talked about, worst in the NFL at defending runs at Stephon Tuitt's spot. If he comes back and he's playing good, like, this team's going to be a lot better, especially like if you have both those players come back and they're playing good. This team's going to be a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. With those those injured bodies currently, do you expect any of them to be back against the Browns? Be it Banner, of course, he should be. But Anthony McFarland or Stephon Tuitt, what is your kind of vibes here with that situation?
I have no clue when Stephon Tuitt's going to be back. I don't know. There's stuff where they show him, looks like he's working out and practicing. I don't know what's going on with him. I know he's got different injuries people have talked about going on that he's working through, and obviously a bad personal situation, rough spot. So I don't know. I'm not going to try and guess with him. I think Banner and McFarland should both be back against Cleveland, and that should be nice to have. I'm interested to see how Matt Canada uses Anthony McFarland this year in this offense.
So I know I've asked you about it before in the past, but when Zach Banner is a good to go candidate, do you anticipate him to step right into the starting lineup at that right tackle spot? And if everyone's healthy, who's playing the left tackle spot if Banner does slide in at the right tackle side?
I think they'll ease him in to start. It's so like you'd like to think that, but at the same time, how do you ease in a starting offensive lineman? Like you want him to start and play. Yeah, I'm gonna go with when he is healthy and he is back, he is the starter at right tackle and left tackle. As much as I disagree with it, I think it'll be a core four. I think they'll give him a shot, and I think it's gonna be hard for Dan Moore Jr. to get back on the field at that point.
Wow.
Which I think is the wrong move. I don't think that's the right move. We're surviving Dan Moore's pass blocking, and we need his run blocking.
Has a core four really been that bad?
Outside of when he plays someone phenomenal, this is the problem. Like if we're going against Cleveland, you kind of want a core four in there because he has a good history against Myles Garrett. Like has a really good history going facing Myles Garrett, facing those type of guys. You might want him more than a Banner, right? Banner coming back being a little rusty going against a Myles Garrett. That's not what you want. He's so hit or miss. There's plays where you're like, whoa, look at him like stymie that great pass rusher one-on-one, and other plays you're like, can you not stink? Like you're like that linebacker just ran through you like you weren't there. Like, come on, man. Like he's hit or miss, man.
So behind him now, moving on to Ben Roethlisberger as this year continues on, are you worried at all that he could see a drop in his play? Is that a possibility? Could he play worse? Could he get better? What do you think is a realistic end to Ben Roethlisberger's 2021 season?
I am at this point set that he is what he is. He is exactly the player you see, and I don't think you're going to have a great ending. I'd like to have a respectable one. I don't want him to go out where his last couple of games you're like, wow, that was a joke. Which is why I figured he was going to come back this year because he didn't want to go out where Cleveland was his last game. Right? He didn't want to go out where he lost so many of his last games and then just had that awful game against Cleveland. I want to see him go out well. I want to see him account for himself well. And I think this team is building up to the point where he can do that.
So then moving beside him to Najee Harris, he, of course, is his rushing totals are starting to pick up some steam. The Steelers are starting to run the ball better and better and better. Do you expect him to be a 1,000-yard rusher by the time the final whistle is blown?
Ooh,
I think he's on pace for about 900 something.
So he'd have to pick up. Ooh. I'm trying to think of the teams we have left in their run defense. Yeah, I think we're gonna pick. I think we could. I think we could pick that up. Yeah, because I'm gonna go with yes. Yes, he's a 1,000-yard rusher. Even though I picked him to not be, I picked him to have like 900 yards. And so now I'm gonna say he'll make it, and then he won't. So I'm gonna say he's a 1,000-yard rusher
to make you right before the season.
Yes.
Gotcha.
One of the ways I'm right. But I think he has a good shot to pull it off. This offensive line is coming together decently.
Right. Now, it is getting better, the run game, to a degree. Do you think if a core four takes over that left tackle job, he will cling on to it for the rest of the year if he's healthy?
Like you're killing me here. Yeah, because the Steelers do that. Like I would love to see them not be
it's a Steelers thing to do.
It is. He's the veteran. Dan Moore Jr. is a rookie. I mean, Kevin Dotson was our best offensive lineman last season, and they sat him. You know, rather, I don't know. In my opinion, I look at it there's times where I look at it and I'm like, you'd rather lose a playoff game than like start a rookie and just deal with the consequences for that. You'd rather
That's not an
That
insane
drives me
take, because
crazy.
that's pretty much what we saw.
Yeah.
Hi. Now, kind of continuing on with this as well, like kicking out to the receiver spot. Do you anticipate that Claypool Roethlisberger connection to start clicking in any way, or is this just going to be a doomed bad Wi-Fi, as Antonio Brown would put it?
Well, it's not awful right now. Chase Claypool leads the team in yards per target. He's it's just I guess the issue here is Chase Claypool does well when the offense is working. When the offense is working, Chase Claypool gets his numbers, right? When the offense isn't working, you end up with like 14 targets to Deontay Johnson for like 70 yards, and you're like, that's awful. Like he led the team in receptions and yards, but it was an awful stat line. When the offense isn't going well, Ben just throws to Deontay and Chase disappears. When the offense is rolling is when you see Chase Claypool start getting targets. He is the guy Ben goes to when there's matchups to exploit. When there's the defense is crashing the line, he starts going to Chase Claypool. So I would love to see that connection get going, because if the run game is rolling and the team, the offense is working, Chase Claypool is going to get yards. He's going to be producing. When that doesn't, he's going to fall. He's going to disappear. Just like literally everyone disappears from the offense except Deontay Johnson.
So with it, how many 1,000-yard receivers will the Pittsburgh Steelers feature here this season?
This season, I'm going to go with 0.
Again, for another year in a row, 0,000.
Yeah.
I believe that would be 3 consecutive years without a 1,000-yard receiver.
I'm expecting the biggest pickup in targets to be Pat Freiermuth, and I don't see him getting 850 yards the rest of the season. Wow. I could see him getting to 600, maybe even 700 if this team goes really good, which is going to cut into yards for other people.
That would be a tough look in today's passing league. But you mentioned Pat Freiermuth as well. What do you kind of see for him in his rookie year? Obviously, he got that pickup in stats. I'm also not a believer that he's going to get too many more targets, because it's a Ben-led team, and Ben has never thrown his tight ends, even if his name was Heath Miller. What do you anticipate for the end of his rookie season? Will that 7-catch game continue on to be a trend throughout the season? Will he kind of be that guy that how Ben grows a connection with somebody, starts targeting him more, and maybe as a receiver slot type, he might pick it up? What do you foresee from Pat Freiermuth as this year rolls on?
Oh, what I want to see, his final line would be somewhere around 600 yards, 6 touchdowns. I think we're going to see like 450 yards and a couple of touchdowns, maybe 3. I'd love to see it. I just don't. I've learned not to expect it. When we look at things and we're like, this is finally going to be great, and nah, not anymore. He's going to throw to Deontay Johnson a lot. The crazy thing is, do you know who is tied with Deontay Johnson for the lead in receptions on this team?
Is it Najee Harris?
It is Najee Harris. They both have 34 receptions on the year. To let you know, Najee Harris isn't going to be here long, because they can't pay him like a number 1 receiver and a number 1 running back.
Oh, that is funny stuff. Jeffrey Benedict. He's a running back who's already 23 years old. 5 years on his rookie deal puts him at 28, a franchise year 29. Yeah, I wouldn't give him a contract regardless. Anyway, that's a topic for 5 years from now. We'll worry about that then. He's a running back.
Just start paying Najee hashtag.
Don't kill me. You're not allowed to pay him yet, because he's still within 3 years on his rookie deal. Give me a break. But flipping over to the defensive side of the football and some more kind of predictions for this team, how they roll out. Obviously, I think we need to start with TJ Watt, who's by far the Steelers' leader when it comes to sacks. He's at 7, despite only playing, 5.5 games. Devin Bush is second with 2. It's just not close. Now, is TJ Watt, I know he's a sack behind Myles Garrett for the league lead. And again, Myles Garrett pretty much had all his sacks in one game where he had 5 or 4.5 or whatever it was. Do you think TJ Watt leads the league in sacks again?
If he stays healthy, I mean, 7 sacks and 12 quarterback. He also has 7 tackles for a loss. Like his season right now is absurdly good. Absurdly good. He's forced 3 fumbles. Like
this is his best start to to a season in his career, and like he's only missed 2 games in his career, plus that half against the Raiders. So like, this is incredible.
He is lighting it up. You got to question if it can even continue. Like, is this sustainable? Are teams eventually just going to be like, put 3 people on TJ Watt? Hey, just ask our quarterback to, like, if I'm the Ravens, I'm like, if you see Isaiah Loudermilk or Chris Wormley, don't block them. Just be like Lamar, outrun those guys, right? Just outrun those guys. We're going to block Cameron Hayward. We're going to put 3 guys in the path of TJ Watt and hope for the best. Because
it's
the only person running him down is TJ Watt.
It's nice to say that, though, but that game-ending play against the Seattle Seahawks started with a triple team on TJ Watt. The right tackle, the tight end, and the running back were all blocking TJ Watt to start that play. He cuts back upfield, strip fumble, Steelers ball, Steelers win the game. It was incredible. One of the greatest plays, and that part I don't think is talked enough. One of the greatest plays really in modern Steelers history. I know it's just a Sunday nighter in the middle of the year, whatever. Yeah. For a play to make, though, being a triple teamed as an edge rusher, sack fumble game, unbelievable play.
Yeah. Oh, how he came up, he swung for that ball crazy too. Oh yeah, that was great. I've watched that play like 40 sometimes. That's one of those plays I watched and I'm like yelling at my computer because I'm like getting super pumped. I'm like, it's great play. Man.
Is this a TJ Watt DPOY year?
This has got to be it. I mean, their PFF is setting him up for it. They've got Cameron Hayward rated higher than Aaron Donald, right? They're already set. They're like setting the league right now, being like, "Hey, this isn't Aaron Donald's year, guys. Hey, guys. Hey, guys, this isn't Aaron Donald's year. Please listen to us, for goodness' sake. It's not Aaron Donald again." But yeah. Oh my God, if he keeps this pace. I mean, though,
it's going to be
if he keeps this pace, it's 20. It's a 20 sack season. That would be absurd. I don't think that is sustainable. I don't think that is.
He's been putting up multiple sacks. He's had 2 sacks in, I think, 3 games this year. Yeah. I think crazy numbers, like unbelievable. And he's not just doing it from that too. And I see the comments throwing Trayvon Diggs out there. I know he has all those interceptions. The thing is, Diggs has been burnt for way more touchdowns already than interceptions that Cowboys corner. I know he has 7 interceptions and a pick 6, but still he like on any given play is getting torched downfield. So like interceptions alone, I don't think is enough for Diggs to win that. So I generally think TJ should be the clubhouse favorite right now, especially how better the Steelers are when he is on the field. Now there are some other guys who need. Go ahead, sorry.
If he can average 1 sack a game for the rest of the season, that would put him at 18 sacks, and it's a lock. That's my opinion. If he can average 1, like you have 18 sacks, that's it. It's over. No one's beating that.
Especially with everything else he's been able to do this year in the pass game, in the run game, he has been a stud. Period. Point blank. Period. You'd love to see him get like some pick 6 just to put that exclamation point on it to shut everyone up. I was like, okay, no, we got to put the little brother Watt down, but maybe we got to ask for that to come up, but still just be humble, maybe. But hopefully that ends up happening. But with other players along this defense, I'm curious. Teams are not throwing at Minkah Fitzpatrick. Will he have a single interception before the end of the season?
I would go with yes. Because he is so good when balls get batted in the air. He's so dangerous at that. At some point, a ball is going to fly into the air and come somewhere near Minkah Fitzpatrick, and he's going to come down with it. That's my opinion. Even if he can't get one, like like one of the ones where he jumps a route. They've gotten wise to him. They know when he's in cover 2, they just don't go to his side. When it's cover 1, they attack him with specific route combos, or they just avoid him. They have enough film on him, but he's still really good. People get down on Minkah, but he is really good. And again,
he's leading the team in tackles. He is a heat-seeking missile as a tackler this year. He's like frustrated the ball's not going to him, so he's just chopping everyone's legs out. He's been good.
We've had a free safety lead this team in tackles before with Sean Davis. It was not a good defensive season. Anytime your free safety, who almost always is your deep safety, is leading your team in tackles, it's a bad thing. And we had see, this is the problem. When things break on our defense and teams get through, it used to be Devin Bush was the guy there, right? Devin Bush is not that guy right now. He doesn't have that speed. He's not getting out like that. And it's Minkah right now. And that is not what you want. You don't want Minkah Fitzpatrick being your leading tackler because he's a free safety. He's going to miss a bunch too. Like he's going to miss more. He's just not as big. But Minkah is playing great. It's sad that he is in the role that he has to be in right now because the defense isn't that good in front of him. There's too much being given up in front of him. But yeah, he's phenomenal still.
So across the rest of the defenses, is there anyone else you want to point out and say, okay, this guy's set up to have a huge end of season?
No, I really don't. I really don't. I mean, there's some good stories out there. There's Trey Norwood's a great story.
Oh, amazing.
And just like being exactly what they drafted him to do, right? I keep going back to watching his film right after the Steelers drafted him, and that was my film room to do. And I'm watching him, and I'm just sitting there looking at it being like, that's Cameron Sutton's nickel. That's Cameron Sutton's dime roll. Everything he does, every zone he's playing, all the switches he's making the man cover pickups he's doing. Like, it's all stuff Cam Sutton does in dime for all these years. And they're just like, yeah, we're moving Cameron Sutton outside. Let's go draft this kid who does exactly that. Like, that was his whole career, and he was phenomenal at it in college. And yeah, guess what? Same role in the NFL. He's really good. I don't think he's going to be some kind of a superstar player, but he is good at what he does, and what he does just happens to fit our defense perfectly in that role. Like, he doesn't even play in nickel. He only plays in dime, but he's absolutely a superstar in dime.
Oh, yeah, he has been outstanding at it. And PFF's top-rated defensive back for Week 6 is Trey Norwood.
Yeah.
I mean, it's PFF stats, so take it with a grain of salt, but still, the recognition is there. What a game he had. But as we get to the end of the show, typically, we like to do a game score prediction. Jeffrey, I'm going to surprise this one on you because we didn't talk about it beforehand, but this week, what will be the Steelers' final regular season record by the end of the season? Currently, we're at 3-3 with 11 games to go. What will the Pittsburgh Steelers record be when the final whistle blows? I guess that Week 17 game is against Cleveland at home in Pittsburgh.
Week 18.
Week 18. Ugh,
yeah, it's the 17th game. Yeah, I know it's horrible. 10-7.
Why you got to take my answer? That like
9
and 8,
7
and 1.
9-7-1.
Ew, no ties.
10-6-1. I'll go 10-6-1. I can live with that.
Look at you. No, I honestly kind of believe the Steelers will go on a bit of a mini run here, get to 6-3, and really kind of be like, oh wow, they won 5 games in a row, and then kind of just be that 500 team the rest of the year, get it in the playoffs. I guess who knows what happens from there, but I think this team still has enough juice to get there, and hopefully can send off Ben Roethlisberger into the sunset with a little bit better ending than last year.
Here's the one for me. Here's me springing one on you. What is the Steelers' record in the division? They've got 5 division games left.
They pretty much have to win all. If they want to win the AFC North, they have to win them all, period, at this point. If they want to win the AFC North.
Baltimore, to get in front of Baltimore. The Lamar Jackson train is not stopping.
Lamar Jackson and like nothing else, but that's another show for another day. Their final AFC, so they're already 0-1 against Cincinnati. I think they beat the Browns because they're so beat up, and like revenge game, you have to win that game. I think they win that game. They always handle the Ravens with Lamar Jackson for whatever reason. They always play super well against them. You know what? I'm going to go 4-2 with the only other loss also being against the Cincinnati Bengals. They beat the Browns and the Ravens twice and go 0-2 against the Cincinnati Bengals.
They beat the Browns twice and the Ravens twice.
You also got to keep in mind the last 2 weeks. They got there could be some rest going on. So, but a hot take, sure. They beat the better teams and lose to the quote unquote worser team. But
so
that's what I'm thinking.
We go into Baltimore and they're resting people and we beat them in Baltimore.
And then Cleveland come to Pittsburgh. Who knows what either team will be looking like? Perhaps both fighting for playoff positioning. But at home, I like the Steelers in that one too.
But look at the schedule, though. This is what I love about this schedule. This is Ben Roethlisberger's last season. His last 2 regular season games. At home against Cleveland, on the road at Baltimore. What, like those two, if he could win those 2 games and just go out and be like, yeah, I'm done, but still better than you. Like, that would be it. That would be like, and then don't face any of them in the playoffs. We'll face someone else, right? Don't face them again. Unless we can beat Cleveland in the playoffs. That would be fabulous. If they somehow make the playoffs, and we beat them in the playoffs. Great.
That'd be awesome. That'd be wonderful.
Freaking do the like 3, beat Cleveland 3 times, and then whoever's next on us just obliterates us. But we beat Cleveland 3 times in one season.
Oh, it'd be great. Oh, man. Anyway, we are up against our hour here. Is there anything you want to plug before we say bye to the people, Jeffrey?
Yeah, I've had really a lot of fun listening to the Bi-Week Bonanza podcast we're all doing. I don't know when yours comes out. I finished mine, Saturday. But it's not coming out till I think Thursday. You're coming out Saturday. Okay. But yeah, there's a lot in there. I'm listening to all of them. I like them. So check out the Behind the Steel Curtain podcasts. Listen to all of us rant about, the season and pick the same player for the offense. Like one of the categories is offensive MVP. Like, come on. Who's the offensive MVP for the Steelers right now?
Derek Watt.
Like anyone want to not say Najee Harris? Because you can be wrong. Like, that's an option. You can just make the wrong choice and say anyone other than Najee Harris.
Yeah, honestly.
I laughed at that one. Every podcast, people are like, oh, I know someone's going to say Ben Roethlisberger, but I think it's Najee Harris. I'm like, no, everyone's going to say Najee Harris. You better say Najee Harris, Michael Becker. I'm kicking you off this show.
You're kicking me off my own show? What is this?
Yes, I was kicking you off. Yes. Yeah. There's the button somewhere on here. I can figure out how to use this.
I guess we have equal rights to the tools on this platform. So I suppose that is something you can do.
That much.
Oh, goodness gracious. But I guess the last thing to also remind the people of is just to click over to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. It should be your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. I know we say it all the time, but for breaking news, for commentary, for top 10 lists, whatever you want, it's on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, and I assure you it's better than any other site you're going to be trying to click over to anyway. So you might as well spend your hard-earned your hours really at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. That's should be, once again, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. Once again, for my co-host Jeffrey Benedict, my name is Michael Beck. We will catch you guys next week.